RAM squeeze. Number one, out the gates, Micron announces exit from its crucial consumer business. For me, from coming from the tech side, this is really interesting for a couple of different reasons. Micron is the third largest RAM chip, memory chip provider. So you can actually buy chips from different named companies out there. If you go on Amazon right now, I'm sure you're going to find some different names than you're used to seeing. Uh, there's some fun ones like Team Group or something Yummy Boy or whatever. But all of
Yummy
those,
boy?
yeah, but all of those are just sourcing
Wouldn't trust
chips.
that RAM.
Oh, I mean, well, what they're actually doing though is they're sourcing the chip from these foundries, right? So you've got Samsung, number one, SK Hynix, number two, and number
Yeah.
three is Micron. So all they're really doing is saying, hey, send us the chips. We'll pay Micron, we'll pay Samsung, but then we'll create our own package. We'll put them together onto a board that we've designed. We'll decide whether or not it needs extra cooling, whatever it might be. So they can come up with things that are maybe more cost effective for people trying to buy a lower end RAM price stick, or there's higher end RAM that you can buy for maybe your gaming PC for people that want to have the fastest memory available, or in the specific case that we're going to talk about today, is for data centers where they generally need both fast timing as well as large amounts of RAM. So when you think about when you're building out a brand new data center, not only is it about GPUs, as has been the case for the last couple of months, it also applies to everything else that you need in the server, right? So specific to memory, you're seeing here Micron deciding the demand from the data center build out is so high that they just can't justify sending some of these chips over to the consumer side of the business, which frankly has lower margins usually, as well as lower overall order sizes. So Micron, again, on the left hand side of this image here, putting out their press release, and then on the right hand side, this is the tweet from Crucial saying thank you for 29 amazing years. I think if you're a consumer on the gaming side, this is probably a big blow to you. I would expect, if you're into anything, computers, tech, all of that, you're going to start to see prices rising, and they have been. Right here is the average price in dollars over the last 18 months for DDR5 6000. So doesn't really matter. Disregard those first two numbers, but 2 by 16 gigabytes. That's 32 gigabytes of RAM. That's about what you see in most desktop PCs today. Any brand new laptop, for example, probably has something similar to these chips inside of them, about the same size and timing. But you can just see here on this chart, I mean, it's been relatively flat up until the last couple of months, and you just see this uptrend. So I'm gonna throw it over to Matt here. Maybe can you help me understand how does this fit into the broader picture? Because from my perspective, it seems like it's just this data center piece that's affecting RAM, storage, etc. But it sounds like there might be something more going on across the globe.
All right, let's stay on this slide.
Yeah.
I'll get to the backdrop. What are you looking at here? But start with the underlying fundamentals. You've got the AI kind of ramp up, the capex, accounting for a significant share of U.S. domestic economic growth. So if you think about, I'm gonna make a comparison into the 2000s in a few minutes from now. But what's happening is this is the growth engine of the U.S. economy. We're betting it all on red here. AI is what we're going to go with. We need that productivity, given the workforce demographics, just what the credit system needs. You need productivity improvements, over time, in order to expand credit into the economy. It's where this thing comes from. That is its lifeblood. So we've basically made the strategic decision. We're going all in on the AI trend. I've said this before. We're not going to know until 5 to 10 years into the future whether these investments pan out. It's just something you have to kind of like throw the darts in the dark, take the trust fall backwards into the leap of faith. Whatever analogy you want to make. But that's kind of how this always works in the course of human history, with societies betting on new technologies. But this is an important one because it's ours. It's our generation's era that we're falling into. So what we're looking at here, set that backdrop. The U.S. economic growth engine, we bet the farm on AI. That's crystal clear at this point. We talked about that last week with the Genesis project, all of that. We're pot committed. So what you're seeing here on this chart of DDR5 memory, you notice it's relatively stable up until roughly mid-September. Then we start to go up. It starts to look like that banana peel. What that's showing you is the demand side, the consumption, sticks of memory in these data centers. They're bumping up against their supply constraint. This is what happens. The growth engine of the economy, this ties into the money, credit, and asset prices framework that we've talked about in prior episodes as well. While the economy is in a growth cycle, while growth is positive, once you get, late game into the stress into that kind of entire machinery, what you'll see is the build out, or the demand for resources in the economy, start to price up against the economy's supply capacity, right? You think about capacity, you've got Crucial, which is, a division of Micron. Those memory sticks are manufactured, some in Boise, Idaho, some of them are offshore in Taiwan or South Korea is where, tends to be predominant in the memory production. And then you've got other sources of producers coming mainly from South Korea, SK Hynix and Samsung Electronics. But what this is showing is this demand, this AI data center build out, which, you hear the blurbs in the headlines like, oh, this, how many football fields long is this facility that Meta's building? How big is this one? Like, they're huge. It's massive capex. And what this chart is showing you, it's just one of many data points that's showing you that this entire growth complex, the demand side and the build out, is bumping right up against the supply constraints that the actual economy is able to deliver, right? That's where you're starting to see already, like when price starts to run up on a key input to making that, think about this as a pipeline, a manufacturing pipeline where you start with the inputs, you got raw data, you got a data center, you got server racks, a couple of employees maybe, cooling, but then you also got the RAM, right? The output is AI models, right? Just get better models, expand the frontier. What you're seeing happen here as that price goes up is literally that bid up in resources to the extreme. Eventually, what happens here is you tend to get a buckling, right? The resources will get priced up until the last marginal buyer wins the auction. Same thing as like the Dutch auction framework, if you're familiar with this. This is a typical eBay auction, right? You have a timeline. Now, in this case, you don't know when the auction ends, right? The end date is whenever the last marginal buyer gets priced out. It's like bidding for horses or whatnot, and raising your paddle, right? Everybody is, raising their paddle, marking up price, marking up price, marking up price, marking up price, and then you get what's called the winner's curse, right? The guy who pays the most is the last one standing. He wins the chips, but at that point, all the resources price out, and you get a kind of a reset as the profitability constraint. Can you make that output? In this case, the AI frontier model with your given set of inputs at the prices that the supply side of the economy can deliver. Once that washes out and we see profits dry up or cash flows dry up or capital available for investment into this space dries up, that's when you see this thing peter out. So what we're seeing right now, this is just my color, this Crucial decision, and that's the U.S. domestic producer in this kind of global memory industry, right? We talked about the South Korean producers being the predominant market share, but what Crucial is representing is the U.S. Flagship memory producer based out of Boise, Idaho. pulling back and they're saying, we are not going to supply the consumer market. We are going to focus on the highest marginal buyer, highest price marginal buying consumer, which is the commercial data center build out, right? So that's kind of your suppliers, triage, if you will, to continue providing resources into this very hungry demand build out. So what you're doing is you're giving up one customer base to focus on another. And what this essentially does, it doesn't say like the musical chairs, the game is over, music stopped, etc. It's really an extension move. You're saying, home gamer, business laptop, what have you. We're going to underserve that market, which means, this highlights what Cameron talked about earlier. You go to Amazon, who are the chip manufacturers now that you're going to see if you're that gamer, looking for a memory stick? It's going to probably be an off-brand. Most likely it's going to be coming from mainland China. It's not going to be SK Hynix, Samsung, or Crucial anymore, or Micron. You're going to have to go to another supplier. And in this case, it means China, most likely. But what this really does, it extends this growth phase slightly. It's hard to know what inning you're in until you get there, sixth, seventh, et cetera, for this wave. But what it does represent, in my mind, along with all of those other headlines you've been seeing, including this showing up at the national federal policy level with that Genesis announcement last week. It's basically an extension from the production side of this industry to continue this build out as long as possible. Now, I'm going to make another analogy here, something similar. Think about resources in the economy, the inputs that are key to economic growth under a model. Prior to, let's say, 2010, pre-GFC, globally, that core input in the 20th century, maybe early 21st century, was oil, right? We were on an oil economy. To get more growth output, you needed to get barrels of oil into your economy and consumed, making whatever, gas in the cars, diesel for building, real estate, buildings, etc. Anything. You put a barrel of oil into anything, you can make so many different finished goods out of it. But the analogy I want to make here, in the 2000s growth engine, what we were running up to was the constraint, right? We were running out, this is pre-shale, so we didn't know we didn't really have the technology fully deployed yet to flip the US from a net oil consumer to a net producer as we are today. But what we saw between basically 2002, 2003, up until the GFC, summer of 2008, or right with the collapse of Lehman, what we were doing was basically what I talked about with, the prices of memory starting to hockey stick, the key input to economic growth. You saw the barrel of oil get priced up to, I think it reached well over $100 for the first time. I priced it here in terms of number of hours worked, in terms of the average hourly earnings of non-supervisory employees. So just how many hours did your average American have to work to be able to afford that barrel of oil? And that just spread into the input costs to fund their entire life, right? Get in their house, their car, all of the, intermediate goods or consumption goods that are in their house, everything, plastics, et cetera. And so what you saw is that price go up from 2 hours for a barrel of oil worked in the, early to mid 2000s, let's say post.com bubble. It squeezes up to 8 hours of work, which for most people is a full workday for one barrel of oil. That's what I'm talking about, this resource pricing. Everybody will bid after it, they'll bid up the resources, so long as the marginal buyer sees positive value or positive profits based on those input costs. But once the price starts to get too high, it's kind of like Wile E. Coyote running over the cliff. He doesn't look back and realize, hey, I'm not on solid ground. In the cartoon, gravity doesn't take over until he realizes there's no other bid below him, right? And then it's a quick drop. That's, in my opinion, if you're looking at an analogy to the 2000s, like what happened with oil, that's kind of the same process of what resources would be showing with this AI development trend, which is it is the driver of economic growth, and it has been in the entirety of the post-COVID geopolitical world. So that's what we're watching. But crucial, that announcement after 29 years, they're retiring the consumer brand. This is why they're going to focus on that customer segment that they view as more critical. It also brings into question the decoupling narrative or theme you're talking about between U.S. and China. I'm sorry, but the U.S. office worker, the video gamers, et cetera, will not be happy if we do not allow imports from the Chinese memory industry at this point. So it's a continuation on multiple of the big themes that Cameron and I have been talking about and raising awareness on over the course of the year.
Absolutely. And so from there, I think, the to me when I see prices like this, going back to the memory piece, when I see that spike, it just tells me that I know that there's going to either have to be, some type of a shift in how we're supplying these chips, right? We're going to have to create more capex to bring that either onshore to some of our partners, or we're going to have to, change demand,
It's
which I don't think that's going to be a thing that people are going to be willing
yeah,
to do.
demand's not done. Like
Right.
like this squeeze you saw in the prior chart from $100 a stick roughly to 400. That's first wave of a breakage. Exponential charts can get far higher than this. So this may be a development that's just getting started, and to resolve it, to build out more supply, building a chip fab or a memory fab facility, they're also capex intensive. So and they take time. So it's going to be really hard to keep supply and demand in balance in this 2020s growth wave we're in.